I wanna see, like as people are building things up, what kind of structure is coming together. And I think you can find out like what are the most used.
No, I just want to make sure you could plug in if you need to.
Yeah.
Okay.
I plugged it in.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he showed you the properties.
No. I just want to make sure whoever needs our new.
And you
Yeah.
also see, you could query the, like,
Well, you can query sub and super, but you can't, I don't know that there's a way that you can things that link to this in any way.
right.
That was what I, but we're catching something.
So, hello everyone, can you all hear me okay? Okay, great. So, this afternoon I'm going to talk about some of the tools that we have for getting our data into Wikidata, so we can work on a slightly larger scale than just editing one item at a time. I'm going to begin by looking at source MD, source metadata. This is actually a package of tools that we can use for editing items about publications and for adding information about authors. And then we're going to move on to look at an open refine workflow for getting some data from APIs. We're going to reconcile that with Wikidata, we're going to extend it, and then we're going to upload to Wikidata. So that's a nice little workflow. I want this to be useful for everyone, so if there's any questions as we're going along, if I'm not explaining something, or you just need me to clarify, please just shout out and I will do that. So I'll make a start. Okay, so yeah, as I've just said, we're going to be looking at some tools for editing publications in Wikidata, and then we'll go through source MD and open refine. So, source metadata, source MD as we call it, it's a package of tools. They've all been combined with this one interface now. It runs in batch mode, so I'm not actually going to demonstrate it live because you won't really see anything. You'll just see me input a list of either QIDs or DOIs, and you won't really see the outcome. So I'm just going to show you some screenshots and talk about this. It'll be fairly quick, and then we'll move on to open refine. So I've annotated the screenshot of the different options we have. At the top, check or add papers. That's where we can put in DOIs or PubMed IDs, and we can put in a list. We can go up to 20,000 if we want to, all at once. Hit run, and then in the background it will be running, creating those items. We don't need to keep the browser open, we'll just go back and check. Later on, maybe a few hours, a day, depending on how big the backlog is of people running their batches. And that will all happen in the background and be done for you. The second option is the option to add an author to a paper. So for this one, we need a list of QIDs about the articles. We put all of those in, and then it will search for ORCID identifiers for the authors who have that paper in their ORCID profile, and it can automatically add the authors. So it can add multiple authors to each item if they've got that link to their ORCID profile. Again, that's going to run in the background, and it will add an item, potentially creating a new item if it needs to, or it will match an existing item using the ORCID identifier, attach that to the article item using the P50 author property, and it will also remove the author string from the item. So let me just explain. When we create a new item in Wikidata using these tools, we don't add the author as an item straight away. We add an author string because it's a complicated process to do all the matching in one go. When we use this tool, it will then remove the author string as it adds a new item. So it's doing several tasks in one go, which would be quite time consuming for us to do. If we've got to create a new item for an author, we've got to then attach it to a publication, and then we've got to remove the author string. That's quite a few little steps for us to go through. If we've got to do that on a whole number of publications, if we've got, I don't know, a corpus of 1,000 items, that's a lot of work, and this can just run in batch mode and do all of that for us. The third and fourth option, this is a tool called Wikidata. You may have heard me mention it yesterday in my talk. This is running on using ORCID. Sorry, I should say number 2 is as well, but third and fourth option are working with the author. Number 3 will harvest other identifiers that are attached to an ORCID profile and attach them to the item for the author in Wikidata. Number 4 is the particularly useful option of entering a whole list of QIDs, running in batch mode, harvesting papers and attaching them to the author. So it's essentially doing the same thing as number 2, but in reverse. It's starting with the author and getting the work, whereas number 2 is starting with the work and getting the author. So we can work from both directions and get a lot of information, obviously dependent on that being publicly available in the author profile. And number 5 is the option to use an ISBN to create a book item. I haven't used this extensively, and when I try to use it, quite niche publications, all it does is create a title, a label, and the ISBN. I don't know whether it can get more detailed metadata if it's a popular publication or a more recent publication. That's something that I don't know at the moment, but it is a working functionality of the tool. Okay, so this is the second option. What you do, you put in a list of DOIs as your input. You can label the batch. So if you're adding multiple batches, you can give them different labels, so you're able to identify which they are, which one is which, and see when it's completed. You input the list, you click on check or add papers, and then you leave it. Later you come back and you can see that that batch is completed. So I've labelled the batch Nature 2, that's a list of articles from the journal Nature. And then we can see that on the right hand side, we can see that the batch is completed. So yeah, that was a batch of 10,000 items that I left running in the background. They've all been created in Wikidata now. So just to expand on that slightly, you can use the Crossref API to get the DOIs. You can run a query of Crossref, get a list of DOIs per journal, or do various other queries, and then input them into here and create them in Wikidata. It's a very quick and easy way to create a lot of data. So this is how SourceMD used to look before it was running in batch mode. I've just used this to give you some indication of what's going on in the background. The screenshot label number 2, that's actually quick statements. So what happens when you put in the DOIs, SourceMD creates structured statements, triples, in quick statements, and then it runs via quick statements to upload that to Wikidata. So you can actually see how it's doing the uploading there in a way that you don't see in the batch mode. This is still available. If you want to have a bit more control over the items you're creating, at the bottom of the SourceMD screen, you can use the old SourceMD, which is this. So you go for an extra step of having to view the statements in quick statements there, and then uploading them yourself rather than it running all in the background. Okay. So this isn't actually linked from the source MD screen, and it's a really, really useful feature. It's for resolving authors against their publication. So if you've got an author name, what you can do is put the name in at the top, search for that author, and it'll give you potential publications. It groups them by using co-authorship and subjects to group likely corpora within. So for that, if you've got an author with a common name, it will group publications that thinks of the same author together, which is really good for disambiguating. Would it be useful for me to show you this live?
Yes, please.
Okay, just bear with me a moment. I haven't done that. So this is an example from Noam Chomsky. It hasn't grouped anything here, but it's just got the list of all the publications. So we can look down and see there's a lot of items that look like they're related to the linguist Noam Chomsky, and then also an item that looks more like it's related to someone who's more of an activist. But then when we look, we can add an author. We've got a linguist and an activist because it's Noam Chomsky. It's a very famous example, and it's the same person. If it wasn't, I might be quite hesitant to add them all to the same author. What you can then do, select and click on the button, do it, and it will just run. It will add the Noam Chomsky item to those publications. A word of warning if you're going to do this, it doesn't remove the author string after you do it. You have to go in and do that yourself and do that tidying up. So for that reason, I'm not going to create any new statements at the moment.
Take you back 2 steps.
Of course.
So you got the Noam Chomsky from doing a sparkle query about Noam. How did you get Noam
Okay.
Chomsky?
All I do is put Noam Chomsky in at the top. So
Okay.
I'm interested in Noam Chomsky.
Scroll up, yep.
No, that's fine. You can do that with any author, any name you're interested in, and see what's already in Wikidata, and it will give you those items that are still string.
Oh God, that was just what I was going to ask, whether it was a string or whether you had to have already Wikidata entry.
Okay. You can see here,
Yeah.
we've got, that's an actual item that's linked to the,
Yeah.
so that's linked with P50.
Yeah.
Everything else here, these are all strings, so we can click on them and we can start exploring the relationships and adding different people if we want to do that.
Cool.
So it's a really useful tool.
Yeah.
So can you also enter in a Q item in there if I'm at a publication, I want to add an author and it didn't auto-suggest, can I enter in items?
Yes, if I understand your question correctly, where I've selected Noam Chomsky at the bottom here, below it we have the option of adding the QID for the author, and then that will attach that QID to all the publications that we've selected.
So I guess I put up the DOI yesterday, I put up the DOI and the article is there,
Okay.
but there's nothing that suggests where the author is, and it didn't make the association when I go to the author. This publication didn't get auto-suggested, even though it's a DOI listed as a publication. I'm so curious how to connect the dots.
Okay. If you try using this tool and using the fuzzy match when you search for the author, if you don't use fuzzy match, you'll have to get exactly the same form, whether it's initials, which combination of initials, whether it's got full stops after an initial. If you use fuzzy, hopefully it will pick that up. It might not if it's initials and you're using the full name, or vice versa. So, if you're still struggling with that, I can look at it later and help you with it.
Thank you.
Okay. So go back to the slides now. Are there any more questions around that before we continue?
Maybe one would be useful to clarify expectations for the author string and the author item. So I know that's something that's being debated in small circles.
Yeah.
Specifically, what I mean by that is the idea that there's very valuable information in retaining the actual way in which the bibliographic record represents the actual string on top of the actual link to the item.
Yeah, I understand. You're saying that there's information contained in the string beyond the name, really, the form of the name.
Yes, right.
what we normally do is qualify the author with stated as, so we can capture that exact form that is stated in the article. That's obviously important if someone's using the information in a reference. They're not meant to, if someone's changed their name and it's vastly different, but we know it's the same person, we're going to want it in the form that is published.
So from a practical point of view, should the author string be deleted after you find the actual author? Or should you have both?
If we do it this way, it should be added stated as automatically.
Right.
So then we can go back and clean up and delete the author's name string,
Okay.
because we'll have all the information that we want.
Right.
If you're doing it manually, you have to create that qualifier,
Okay.
and also the series ordinal, which is saying which position in the
Yes.
author list as well. That's also
I'm good at
important.
the series ordinal, not necessarily stated as, so that's good information.
Yeah.
Basically, for any given series order, there should be either a string or an item.
Yeah.
Yes.
But not both.
Okay.
So that's the bit of tidying that we need to do.
Yeah.
If you use some of the other Wikidata source MD functions, it will do this for you.
Right.
But this is actually quite helpful if you need to do some disambiguation, you
Yeah.
need to take a look at what you're
Yes.
wanting to work with.
Yeah.
So, as I say, this isn't linked from the main source MD, so it's useful to bear in mind that it does exist.
Yeah.
Excuse me? Okay. Okay, so this is Wikidata running from a list of QIDs. So I've got QIDs for different authors, which you can see in the middle, list of names, and then on the right hand side it's running, checking for publications. It does actually find one in the end for Mark Richards. You can see it makes an amendment to an article. This wasn't a very good example, I have to say, because it's not edited on the first few items, but it should show you quite clearly how it's going through the publications in WikidID and checking to make sure that everything's in Wikidata. It can't always import things if there's no DOI, for example, linked to the ORCID, the publication in the ORCID profile. It won't be able to import because it's using the DOI function of source MD to do the import. So there are limitations, but it's still a very powerful tool for getting information into Wikidata.
But all this, sorry, the reason I'm thinking of authors who do not have an author ID,
Okay.
who there are no DOIs for their papers.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of literature.
Okay.
But I'm also thinking what I can do with this if I have the Wikidata item number
Okay.
for them and a list of their publications already in
Yeah.
Wikidata
Okay.
under a string.
And this sounds like it's more a case of resolving a list of names against Wikidata,
Yeah.
which is what we're going to be doing with Open and Find.
Yeah.
If I understand you correctly.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, okay. Okay. This is a completely separate tool. I just wanted to flag it's really useful. It's built-in function of Wikidata. You just need to enable it in your preferences. It gives you this tool where you can import authority control from VIA. I don't know how clear this is, but all you have to do is click here, authority control. It opens up this this panel showing all the identifiers linked to VIA. By clicking on that plus next to VIA, we get all of those identifiers into Wikidata in one click. It's a really useful feature. Go to your preferences, gadgets, and then tick the box for authority control and save, and you've got this functionality in Wikidata. It's really useful to have, and not everyone knows about it. So going to do some editing with Open Find. In the Etherpad, I put in a handout, which is basically the workflow that I'm going to be going through. if you want to follow that, or you can just watch on the screen. I realised after I uploaded the handout that you can't copy and paste the links, so I put up an older version which has some links. I'm going to sort that out later, so we've just got the one version that works properly, but I beg your pardon, I just use both, so you have that option if you want to do that. I don't know, is everyone familiar with Open Refine? I use it all the time, so I just talk about it like everyone should know what it is. But it's actually a really powerful tool for working with tabular data. You can work with a much larger data set than you can with Excel or Google Sheets. You can do really powerful functions on a column. You can split information really easily. You can get a good overview of all the different items that are in the column. Hopefully you'll get a sense of the things you can do as we go through this example. Let me just tell you about the example. What I'm going to do, I'm going to start by calling the Crossref API with a search for the University of Leeds. I'm going to pull in the results from the Crossref API into Open Refine. I'm going to start expanding. First I'm going to reconcile. That's part one. Then we're going to start expanding the data using Open Refine and using Wikidata. Sorry, not using the ORCID API and using Wikidata to expand. And then we're going to upload some data into Wikidata. So you'll get a sense of how you can start from nothing, create a little data set, and then upload your results into Wikidata if you want to do that. I'm not really going to start from easy and work to hard. It's going to have elements of both throughout the presentation. Again, please just ask questions as we go along, because I don't want to lose you. I want it to be useful. So let's talk if we need to throughout this. So the URL here, I'm going to import a URL. This is the query Crossref API searching for the University of Leeds. I'm going to click next, and it should start finding some results. And by default, it will give me 100 results, which it's now displaying as XML format. This is okay if we import it like this. To clean it is not a problem. But what's actually much easier is if I click on parse data as XML file and then select the bit that I'm interested in, which is the ORCID identifiers. Just click on that, and now it's in tabular form. So that's in 2 or 3 clicks, I've gone from a URL to having a table of data that I'm going to import.
Did you have the link of the query?
If you look in the Etherpad, I've produced a handout with, let me just get the name of that. Excuse me a moment. So the Open Refine tutorial handout, and there's an indented earlier version. I would suggest using that one because you can copy the text. Are you finding that? I think it's in the Etherpad for the tutorial sessions. Yeah, cool. Okay. Yeah, so you can follow along and use that. If you wanted to do a different institution, just change the University of Leeds to whatever institution you want to do. It will need to be URL encoded, otherwise you will return no results though. Okay, so we have a few options for transforming the data here and what we want to import. I'm just going to check the box for trim leading and trailing white space. That's useful to do. And then I'm going to create a project. Okay. So, got 400 rows of data. I know that I've only got 100 results, so I've got 300 rows that I don't want. What I'm going to do on the column that's got the URL, the ORCID URL, I'm going to click this drop-down menu at the top. I'm going to go to facet, a customized facet, and then facet by blank. Tells me that 100 results are false, so they're not blank. 300 are. I'm going to select those. All I see is blank rows now. I'm going to use the drop-down menu next to all. I'm going to go to edit rows. I'm going to remove all matching rows. And I clear that filter. Now I've just got 100 rows. So this is the sort of thing that it's quite fiddly to do in Excel if you want to remove the rows between your data. It's really easy to do it in OpenRefine. And I've also got a blank column at the beginning. I'm just going to remove that. This is quite simple to do. Edit column and remove this column. And I remove the last column as well, because that doesn't have any useful information. So now down to 100 rows with ORCID identifiers in the second column here. I'm just going to relabel this column so it's a little bit easier to see what that is. Okay. But we don't know who these ORCIDs belong to at the moment. We've just got a number. It doesn't mean anything. So what we need to do is reconcile this ORCID identifier reconciliation service setup. In the handout, the instructions for how to do it, so it's not a default feature. All you have to do is put a URL in. It's using the add standard service. You just paste in the URL, and then it's set up. So that's really simple to do. Okay, just check. Does everyone know what reconciliation is? It's the process of matching names in two different places, really. You've got a name in the database and a name in your data set. You need to match them up somehow. That's the reconciliation process. Okay, so we don't have many options with the ORCID reconciliation service. It's just people, so that's fine. I'm just going to start reconciling, and it runs. Bear with me a moment while this completes. What it's doing is matching those ORCID identifiers with the ORCID identifiers in the database, and it will give me some names, which is what I need to carry on working with this data. So nearly there. Okay. So you can see now we've got a list of options here. It's almost always the first option with the ORCID API, but you just need to be aware that sometimes it can go a little bit awry. So it's worth doing some checks, but for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to match with the first result. I do that by going to reconcile again, actions, and match each cell to its best candidate. Now we've got names for the ORCIDs. The data set becomes a lot more usable now we've got this, because we can take those names and then reconcile them with Wikidata, and then we can start editing in Wikidata. What we need to first do is create a new column with the names, so then I can reconcile another column against Wikidata. Is everyone with me still? Yeah?
So, I don't understand why you may have more than one result, especially identifiers.
Yeah, the reason that is because the ORCID API the reconciliation service is meant to run on a name, not on an ORCID identifier. So you're meant to be reconciling a list of names rather than a list of ORCID IDs, but it works with the ORCID ID. I don't know exactly why it gives more than one match. Sorry, I know that's not really a great answer. I've never been able to work that out. But yeah, I would advise that you do some checks and make sure that you've got the right people. And usually it is the first result that's correct, but I have seen sometimes when for some reason someone else can end up first. I don't understand exactly why. I presume it's because there's another ORCID identifier that's a number very close by. So it's rather than doing an exact match, it's going a bit of a closer match rather than, I think that's what it is, but maybe someone else can answer that a bit better who understands the technology behind that. You have a question?
Yeah, I had a question. So the names replaced the ORCID strings there, and is that an option?
Okay, so they haven't actually. We've got both. We've still got the ORCIDs underneath the names. I could add an extra column with the ORCIDs, or I can add an extra column with the names. So we get that information two slightly different ways. Let me show you. I'll add an extra column with the name and see if that makes a bit more sense. So I'm adding a column based on this column. Okay, so so you can see that the value of the column is still the ORCID identifier, but the expression that I'm using is to get the results from the query, from the reconciliation. Okay, so I've got a new column that's just another name string now. So to begin working with this, what I'm going to do is reconcile it with Wikidata. The Wikidata reconciliation service is a bit more interesting than the ORCID reconciliation in that it has multiple options for selecting the item type. I should flag that the Wikidata reconciliation service is built in. You don't have to add that in the same way that you do with ORCID. Okay, so I'm going to reconcile. I know my name's a human, it's selected the right one. But we have these other options as well. Sometimes that's more relevant. If it doesn't guess the most appropriate type straight away, then we can select other options. Or we can even enter our own using the reconcile against type in this text field here. We also have options on this side for using data that we've got in our data set to help with the match. ORCID is a great example to use for this. I'm going to match ORCID with the ORCID ID property. That should help disambiguate if we've got multiple names, multiple entities in Wikidata with the same name. And again, start reconciling. Okay, so well, this is going. Just to say, as I mentioned, I haven't started with easy, getting to more complicated. This is actually more complicated, and then we're going to move into some of the easier functions next. It's just, I wanted to show you a way that you can do something just with an API and get some data and then start editing it and expand it into a data set, rather than just upload a table, which is the more common use case for OpenRefine. Okay, so this is spinning, so it might be a little while before it gets going. Do we have any questions to fill the gap so it's not an awkward pause? I can carry on talking if you want.
Well, you probably can't go back to that previous screen, but could you have put in any Q name for what you wanted to reconcile against?
Yeah, we could, yes.
Because down at the bottom where it said.
You can put in anything, and as you start typing, it will match the most appropriate
Okay.
item, yeah. And you say you probably can't go back. Well, we can't while it's reconciling, but
Yeah.
it's a really good point. We have this undo, redo feature here. It saves everything from the beginning of the project. We can go right back to the beginning if we realise we've made a mistake. It's a really good feature of Open and Refine. One thing to be aware of if you do that, if you go back and then make an edit, you can't go forwards again. You have, but it has options for extracting data. So everything's stored in JSON format. You can extract part of it and then apply it. You can extract it and apply it to another project if you want to. These are really powerful functions. If you're doing an edit repeatedly, then it's really useful to know that you can do this. To cut down on manual editing. I presume there's ways of automating as well. If you take the JSON and look at a way of applying it to a project, maybe outside of Open Refine, because everything's recorded. So that's something to bear in mind. Just to flag, that might be something that we could look at in the hack day tomorrow. If we can automate the workflow a bit, that would be something that's very interesting to me if anyone is skilled in that area. I do apologise, this is taking a lot longer than it usually does.
I think I might have missed something, but how do you associate the WP name column with the Wikidata source?
Okay, so what we're doing is searching Wikidata for those names using the reconciliation service. That's what's running at the moment. So it's going to be searching for those names in Wikidata, and then if it matches, it will give us the QID.
Okay, so it's reconcile. I guess I wasn't familiar with that. Is that a extension or a tool that you install into Open Refine?
The Wikidata function is built into Open Refine now. It's straight out of the box. You can reconcile against Wikidata, so that's really, really cool. Yeah, and since version 3, we can upload directly from Open Refine to Wikidata as well. So that's another really useful function. That's why it's become quite a core tool in Wikidata. Unusually for Wikidata, we've got really good documentation as well with all sorts of examples. I linked those from the handout, I believe, so that's really worth checking out. And yeah, I've got to say thank you to users at Pintosh for all the work that they've done in creating this documentation, videos. We've got everything. It's great. So
with the reconciliation,
yeah,
you've ticked humans to sort of filter it down.
yeah.
Humans.
I know that everything in that column is a human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But can you go a level further and say I want humans that I know are authors from a certain geographical area or?
Yeah, very much so. I haven't got a column to say I want University of Leeds authors, but if I had a column of employer and University of Leeds, I could use that, use the employer property and make that link, so really narrow it down to a particular subset. Using the ORCID ID should do that to some extent.
I'm assuming that information would actually be in Wikidata, so there's no point in trying to refine it down if you're sure that that piece of extra information isn't actually in Wikidata.
Very much so, yeah. You've got to work with...
What you got.
well, yeah, I mean, a lot of the time you might not even have an item for that person. If you know that's the case, then all you want to be doing is running a quick reconciliation, and then you can you see we have the option create new item?
Yes.
That's what we do if we know that they're not there. We create a new item and then do exactly the same as we would if we were reconciling, but we're doing it to create a new item and then adding all that information. Okay, so we've got some matches, which is great. You can see the names have turned into hyperlinks. So that means that there's a Wikidata item that's quite confident that it's made a match. Let me just filter so I've only got the items that are matched. I don't want all the ones with various options. Not do anything with those during this session. So after reconciling, it gives us a summary of whether we've matched anything or not, or whether the column is blank to begin with. We can also use this box at the bottom to filter on the score of the reconciliation. So if it's 100, it's quite likely it's an exact match. And as we get lower, the likelihood of the correct match is decreasing. What I'm going to do is just click on the facet for match. That reduces the data set down to 28 items that have got an exact match. So this is what we're going to be working with now. So we've got a match from ORCID and we've got a match from Wikidata. So we're going to see whether we've got data in Wikidata and data in ORCID, which can confirm these are the same people, whether there's any disparities. So we need to start extending the data now that we've finished reconciling. How we're going to do that is we're going to, from the ORCID drop-down menu, we're going to go to Edit Column, Add Column by fetching URL. Okay, so I'm using this expression here to form a URL, and what this is doing is going to call the ORCID API again, using the ORCID identifier number to get data about that person, and we're going to get some employment data. So this will give us the affiliation that's listed in the ORCID profile. The throttle delay at the top, I'm going to reduce that. It's set very high as default, which I believe is why it took so long to run last time, because I didn't change this. So this time I am going to change it and not make that mistake again. 250 milliseconds is quite reasonable to do. If you get too fast, potentially you can almost get blocked for a while from getting results from the API. So, but this won't be a problem. And it's going to give us a new column with some XML data, and then we can start looking at how we extract data. Okay, so this is a bit unwieldy, right? It has got the information we want buried within it. Let's see if I can highlight it. Okay. So this is the sort of information that we're interested in. It's got the organisation, University of Leeds. A few lines above, we've got the department name, so that's the school faculty. And we've also got the start date. So that's all potentially useful information to get into Wikidata. I'm going to show you how we extract those particular pieces of information, and we're going to create new columns for the employer, which is the University of Leeds, or whatever other institution is listed. I don't know if they're all going to be from the University of Leeds. Then we will get the department and we'll get the start date as well. So again, it's edit column, and this time I'm going to add a column based on column and find the expression. So just to tell you, you can save expressions by starring them. So if you're using something regularly, this is another useful function. style them, and then they're all stored for you so you can use them repeatedly. So just bear with me a moment. Okay, I'm actually going to do it a different way. It's slightly, it'll show you a different functionality and it's a little bit easier to work with. What I'm going to do is I'm going to split this column on common organisation. So on the first match of common organisation, I'm going to add a new column from that point on. Do that by split this column into several columns and paste in split common organisation. We want a maximum of 2 columns here. And okay. So it's added next column, just sequentially adding them by number. So employer 1 is the bit before common organisation, employer 2 is the section after common organisation. Now we can start tidying that up a bit. Just going to edit this cell now directly. I don't need to add a new column. I can just work with this and get rid of everything else that is in that column because it's not required for Wikidata. Excuse me. Okay. Okay, so I'm using an expression here. What I'm doing, I'm trimming the white space. You can see that at the top here. This space is just white space at the start of the string. So trim is getting rid of that. And then I split on the first sort of arrow bracket. Sorry, I don't know the technical name for this bracket. And then again on the closing, on the other side of University of Leeds, it extracts that cleanly. So that's a really simple way to just extract a piece of information from XML data if you know the field name. Run that, and now I'll do a text facet on that column. And you can see we've got all these different institutions that we've extracted from that field. Okay, so that's getting the institution. Let's try and get the department out of employer 1. And this time I am going to add a column based on this column. Okay, so I've used the saved expression here. You can see it's splitting right at the start of the department, but it's still leaving some extra information at the end, so I need to add another split afterwards. Do this with a point. Okay, so that's extracting that cleanly. I've linked to the documentation for OpenRefine from the handout for the session. That's got a guide to the real expression language. So that used to be Google Refine Expression Language. It's now General Refine Expression Language after it became open source. I find it quite easy to use after I've been working with it for a while. I'm not a programmer or anything like that. I'm not trained in computer science, but I've just learned the syntax. I find it fairly straightforward to work with, so I'm sure if you work with it a bit, you'll pick it up quite quickly.
Same thing.
Hey, there's loads of guides and workthroughs and recipes as well, so a lot of the time you're just going to be copying and pasting things in, and eventually you'll start expanding on it a bit, and you really will get the hang of it. Is everyone okay with where we are so far? Yeah, cool. So the one other thing I want to extract from this column is the start date. Okay, so you can see the expression's a bit longer this time. Basically, I'm extracting 3 different pieces of information. I'm getting the year, then the month, and then the date, and joining it all together with a dash, so it's in the correct format to upload to Wikidata. But it's still one expression. I'm getting that information out of the messy XML format data, which is great. It's really easy to do. Even if you've got to write that expression, it only takes a minute to do it. I just saved it because I can't really type in front of people. Okay, so yeah, we've just extended a orchid string from a number. We've reconciled it. We've got a name. Then we've got this employment information now. And what, less than half an hour we've done this. So yeah. But we've still got these columns full of XML data. So let me show you how you can move columns around and delete columns en masse, really. From the all option on the left hand side. It's always on the left hand side, you can't move this option around. We can go to remove reorder columns, and we can get rid of employer and employer one. If we wanted to, we can move things around, so I'm going to bring Wikidata name right to the beginning, because that's what we'll be working with next. Click OK. That's moved that around and got rid of those columns. Okay, so now we're ready to get some data from Wikidata, and it's even easier with Wikidata because it's integrated with OpenWithFind. All we need to do is go to Edit Column, add columns from reconciled values, and I can select which properties I want to pull in from Wikidata. I just want to get the employer. I'm going to get the occupation because this might be useful for checking whether we've got the right person. And I'm going to get the orchid ID. This will again be useful for confirming that we've got the right person. And I think that's enough. Yeah, so we can get an overview of what we're getting from Wikidata here, and we just click OK, and it runs. It takes a moment to pull that in. Okay. So we want to check that we've got the same people in Wikidata as we've got in ORCID now. The obvious way to do that is to look at the ORCID identifier as a unique identifier. So if they match, then we've got the same person. Way we're going to do that is, this is the column that we've just got from Wikidata, the ORCID ID. I'm going to go to facet and custom text facet. This means I can use any expression I want without actually editing the column, so I'm using it to compare with another column rather than doing any sort of edit. So value, that's all we want to check, is the value of this column. And we're going to compare it with the value of the ORCID column, which was the column that we started with at the very beginning when we called the API to form the data set. So we can see we've got some matches and some false. Most of the false seem to be where we don't have an ORCID, so we can do some filtering to get rid of those. Okay. So we've got 13 matches, 15 falses. We'll filter out the blank cells. We'll just go to ORCID ID. Facet, customize facet, and facet by blank. Same as what we did right at the beginning when we got rid of those 300 rows. Okay, so we want to select the blanks. Sorry, no, we don't. We want to select the ones that aren't blanks, so false. And we can now see of the ones where we have an ORCID ID, 13 of them they match correctly, and we've got 2 false matches. So we're just going to keep the ones that are matched. So we know these are the same people in ORCID and in Wikidata, which is great, because now we can start looking at adding some data to Wikidata. First thing we need to do is to reconcile the column that we're going to add. We're going to do the department, so I'm going to have to reconcile that with data. So I need the QID for the statement. So I've got the QID from Wikidata for the person. I know what property I want to add, but I need the value that I want to add to that statement. So to get that, I'm going to reconcile you can see this time we've got a much longer list of potential options. I don't know why we've got a binary star in the municipal unit of Albania. We've got all sorts. I think academic department is probably the most appropriate though, so we'll leave that as it is. And I can use employer to narrow it down a bit. So we've got the employer as the University of Leeds, you can see it just there. So the academic department should be part of the University of Leeds, so I can add that property to narrow this down. This should help get more exact matches. If we run it just as anything, we're going to get academic departments. The School of Chemistry could be at many, many universities, I imagine. But if I use part of the University of Leeds, I should get the right one. Okay, and run that. So I didn't do this on the previous reconciliation, but it's actually quite useful to limit the number of results you get. If it's not in the first 5 results, then you've got a big list. You're probably not going to have the will to go through every one and check which is the correct match. But I will show you this when we finish reconciling. Okay, so you can see we've got some potential matches here. If I click on them, it doesn't link me straight to Wikidata. It opens up a box with some information that helps me find the item I want. So this School of Mechanical Engineering is an academic department at the University of Leeds. That's exactly what I'm looking for this data. And then I can match that. And now that I've got one item matched, what I can do is start to build a schema to specify how I want to upload to Wikidata. At the moment, I can't upload to Wikidata because it doesn't know which column I want to upload or how that should be formed as statements, so we have to write a schema. It's really simple to do. You just have to click on the extension Wikidata, that's there as standard, and edit Wikidata schema. That gives us some new tabs at the top. I'm going to add an item. Okay. So I know that the item is the Wikidata name. This is the name that I reconciled against Wikidata. So it's got the QID for the author. That's going to be the item. That's the first part of my statement I want to write. Okay, so the terms, that's things like the label, the description, and the alias. We're not going to be adding those on this occasion. If we were to add a term, you just enter that as text. It has the option to do that for multiple languages. But what I want to do is add a statement. I want to add an affiliation. And I want that affiliation to be the department. And I also want to qualify it with a start date. Okay, I can just drop and drag that in. I don't need to reconcile that because it's a date. It's just in the format that's in the column. And I want to add reference as well, using the ORCID URL. And I can just save that. And hopefully when I click on preview, that's the statement that we would write to Wikidata. What I can do now, I can export to quick statements. It gives me it formats it for quick statements, and then I can copy and paste that in and upload it. It's that simple to start working with some data and extending it. We also have the option of uploading directly from OpenRefine to quick statements. And there are pros and cons to doing it each way. I prefer to use quick statements now because when you're uploading directly from OpenRefine, it will potentially duplicate a statement that already exists. Whereas if you use quick statements, you can add a reference to an existing statement rather than duplicating it with the reference. So that's why I lean towards quick statements now. But if you're creating new items and you know that there aren't statements already, it's probably easier just to do it directly from OpenRefine.
Does OpenRefine let you edit an existing statement? So say you want to change the date.
You can do that in quick statements. You have to remove the statement and add it again. You can't actually change the claim. That's more complicated because you have to get the snap value, and that's more of a thing you're going to have to do with HiWikibot or by the API. So no, to answer your question. So I think that's gone through the process really, starting with some data and getting to the point where we can upload it. But we've got about 15 minutes left. If anyone wants me to show them anything or want to have a chat about what's happened, do you want me to explain, clarify? We've got some time to do that.
Can you tell us how you use this to, how much data have you uploaded, what are the challenges you face?
Okay, so I've used it quite extensively. The biggest data set I've used is about 450,000 items. That's the EFOS UK publications database, UK thesis database, sorry. So 450,000 items, I can still manipulate columns, I can filter. I haven't got a super powerful PC, it's more powerful than my laptop, but you can do this sort of thing on a home PC. So it's a powerful tool, I would say. comparison to trying to do that with Excel. I probably couldn't open that in Excel. In terms of challenges, I think one thing that's really important is to not just reconcile things and think, okay, I've got the correct match, you need to be doing some checks. If, for example, you're doing people who published books in the 1950s, you want to make sure that those people didn't die in the 19th century or something. So it's quite easy to do all these things, but it's also quite easy to forget and just think, I've got this, it's matched, it's great, and then upload it, and then, yeah, you can almost guarantee that a few days later someone will say, this is wrong, you'll get loads of edits reverted, and then you'll very quickly learn that you need to be writing checks into your process, but you can do all of those things. So yeah, it's been a process of learning for me, learning how I can compare data and check data. Okay.
Can you batch all the processes that you created with OpenRefine, so when you export and different ones,
You can export the whole process and then reapply it to another data set. So if you're going to have the same data set over and over again, or something very similar, the columns are all formatted correctly in the same manner. Yeah, you can just extract the whole process and reapply it. And you can't. It's not fully automated, but it essentially will do what you want them to do. So you don't have to go through it step by step, at least. I can perhaps show you a little bit more of that now. It's not reconciling.
I just could add that there are batch versions of OpenRefine, and you can build a workflow and automatically ingest data, load them to OpenRefine, and get the results, and then load the results as well.
Is that one of the different releases?
Yeah, it's a batch OpenRefine on
Okay.
Tomcats. So
That might be worth checking out, actually. It sounds quite easy. I've never really looked at them.
So if you have any questions, I can.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, it does sound like something that would be very useful, but I haven't explored that as yet. So thanks for that.
I think earlier when you showed like there's XML parsers, I take it there's a JSON parser too, right?
There is, yeah. And there's also expressions for extracting the data you want from JSON. If you expand the column and it returns JSON instead of XML, you can pass that within the column as well.
RDF?
No, I don't think so. Anyway, I believe there's extensions for working with RDF, but I'm not sure whether that's editing. It's more for matching RDF, I believe. Any other questions or anything else I can show you? Yeah.
It's a bit of a broader question, but if I were doing this at my institution, my university, part of me wants to have permission to upload all this information. Like, do you, I guess, walk me through that kind of process? And it's all, in a way, I guess it's all public data and it's all public around public information.
Yeah, I've had those conversations with my manager and my team, my superiors. Basically, I can't use anything that's internal, but they're fine with me doing this using public sources. I think it's quite a good use case, but yeah, I can't use anything internal. It's sort of something that I'm doing independently. I think that's a valid concern. Potentially, I would have a conversation with someone before doing it, make them aware that you're going to be using publicly available sources for doing this work. I think that just covers yourself from any problems down the road.
Yeah, thinking about some of our faculty publications are in an institutional repository, and that's a little bit more kind of reporty or literature kind of material. So I think if it was coming in from cross-ref, it would probably be right. But maybe some of it was more internal documents.
Yeah.
I know to buy it, they get PCs listed under inviting. So even if you've got like an internal database, it's surely it's been ingested with the layout, it should be okay to be used on Wikidata.
I think so, yeah.
releasing.
I mean, you have to think that someone else could come along and do this work who's not affiliated with the
Yeah.
institution because it's publicly available. If it's someone who's connected with the institution, at least they're going to be trying to make sure it's good quality, I would have thought. So it's probably better that someone who's got some familiarity is doing the work rather than just someone else. Anyone, really. Yeah. I didn't say at the beginning, but if anyone wants to sit down and have a look at a workflow for their data over the next few days, I'm happy to do that with them. Yeah, cool. We can do that. We can have a cup of coffee or something and go through it. It's once you start working with it, I think you'll find it quite easy to.
Yeah.
Maybe I've gone through something quite fast that I do every day.
Yeah. That would be my question. Where would you get the data? Where would you get the data to start?
Okay. There's all sorts of sources of data.
Yeah.
You can start scraping the web.
Yeah.
Like as you see here, I didn't start with data, I just started with a URL.
Yeah.
But you can compile data into an Excel spreadsheet and then upload it to do some cleaning and manipulation. That's quite a good use case.
Yeah.
Is it, you're working with historic publications?
Yeah.
So perhaps you could start extracting the data from the title page or something and get it into Excel and then upload it and clean it with OpenRefine.
Okay.
Or if those title pages are digitized and available online, maybe you could pull each title page straight into OpenRefine and do the extraction there because you have things like. Yeah, I mean it's really good if you've got a load of titles that are in uppercase and you just need to change them, things like that. If you've got characters that aren't recognised, you need to change those sort of things. Those sort of edits that are really annoying to do normally. So I think we're due to finish at 5:30. We can call it time now and go and have a sit down and a longer cup of coffee if you want, or I'm happy to continue the conversation if there's more questions.
Yeah.
Thank you. We just have being
Blown minds.
Yeah, there's normally a point when they can refine tutorial where you realise, okay, this is why it's useful. One expression that
And
you
then
see
your
the
mind
magic.
goes off, you
Yeah.
don't know what to do with it,
Yeah, okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank
As
you.
I say, I'll help you.
Well, that's right.
I can really watch it in a
Yes, exactly, that, yeah, no, it's great that it's all been on video, yeah, it's not really necessary to go back over these.
Yeah, yeah, you do. Sorry if I left.
I found with that use case where I uploaded DLI for one of our professors. Publication. At first we just did class.
Oh, yeah.
Two came up that were ready. It wasn't.
Yeah.
I put it in the string with those.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you try to say something about it, you know, just the initial.
No, I get to the point where we trying to.
Yeah, sure. And then I'll be right with you.
Yeah, just kind of learn it. That was a great tutorial. Appreciate that. heard of those designs before, I just haven't.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's like. We haven't heard much people talking about it, and actually I tried it, and straight away I didn't find it that useful, but I
Well,
thought
it's
use
harder
it
to
more
because
someone's
it's
good.
this language and pulling informatics.
Yeah, it's great.
If
Now,
you're starting out with
version
some
3 was
spreadsheet,
great, yeah.
it's
It's nice to know,
to-
I wanted to get into it, so I go, I've got no idea.
yeah.
Yeah, it's good all the time.
Right, right. Right, yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, I'll just go on, just do it, play, and I'll take it seriously, because I've got business to do.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Sur la base d'un seul paramètre, ça me paraît léger, mais oui, oui.
This is Oreos, but where is it that it's here instead
Pas simplement à partir d'un nom,
Yeah.
oui, tu vas mettre sur la base de la phrase supérieure du parasite, avec le titre,
It's on the,
c'est ça qui permet de
it's on the right, too, on the on top. Oh, it was on the second one, the second one,
Oui, je sais pas. Mais je crois que oui, j'ai
Yeah, and I found out about
ça s'appelle ça,
10 o'clock last night, sleep for about 3 hours, so it was too man good. I'm gonna get coffee now.
Et là, du coup, il y a une pause jusque.
some tests to see if you can pick up your photo here.
Other options?
Right. Link format maybe call. You should see what this segment can.
How much can you cover?
I can cover from here. The widest angle I have covers.
These lights.
I can see you basically, let's say everybody in here I can see, and a little bit of a stair to the staircase.
That's a lot of space.
Right. So that would fit, let's see, 3, 6, 10, let's say. Or the other will be here, but let's see what this looks like.
You each have to cover me to the other side.
Oops. They could work too.
Are you all trying to do the picture down here or up there?
We're trying to figure out
Oh,
the
you
best
decided.
option. Yeah.
Okay, so there's also these aren't usually on these floodlights, these stage lights, so I can do like the center ones, the side ones. That'd be awesome.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'm just
Yeah.
playing around with them right now,
Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to like figure out all that's possible. Because if you got, say,
If I could like here, then I go so.
yeah, so you get about 10 people deep, yeah, at about 10.
Right. I think that would be the safer. Can you multiply yourself by 100?
Yeah, just let me just do some mitosis and be back to you in a minute. They're sort of they're trying to do a group picture to figure out the best lighting. We're just playing with writers that is our strategy as well. So we're basically just playing to see what the options are. You could get like
Will you be better owner of camera?
Yeah, I have it on. It's a good book.
A real wide lens?
No, I don't want a wide lens. That's
This is gonna be a.
yeah, that's also a shade.
Okay, that should be it.
Yeah, but my phone has 46 megapixels.
Right.
Or less.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. When are we gonna take it?
So
Today?
yeah. I mean, we can actually, we might also have that tripod over there.
Oh, okay.
So you can also make it.
Yeah, maybe.
yeah.
No, where are we gonna like? Here.
Yeah, so we're planning on just testing the
Let's try it without people.
Yeah. And we can find the time. So we might be able to
Yeah,
set something up.
unfortunately,
Yeah.
it's
Here.
marked up.
Okay.
Prefixes.
So I got an email from Ellie.
Well, okay.
So that's not something I have control over, but I'll check.
Yeah.
Did you not know?
No, I just like got the email 2 days ago. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, she congratulated me on the new job and then I read it. And I couldn't. Yeah.
Dan should be in.
So we were to figure out well, before we come in, everybody stand because otherwise you have to have everything, because like, you can't get.
Yeah, this is your, yeah, but like, just from this place.
Take a picture like from up there to down there. They can raise the, just sorry, and then it'll come back up. Okay. Just like, he's already been
but if you writing a poem for that year.
Yeah, so it's like they're in the wrong cycle. They will not be able to not. Yeah, so this is everything we do in 2 years.
It's all that you municipal. Hey.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I'm glad if everyone is like within these lines.
Oh, so we're moving like from the top?
Yeah.
Okay. So you said better than the other way around?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I think it's better. But I mean, like, like something. If people, yeah.
Okay, now I remember.
Some people were always like,
Oh yeah, now I should know because my dog name is Oscar.
I'm sure you.
Yes, yes, now I remember.
I was trying to think about England and see if we could use the title, but it's going to be tricky. So maybe the best thing would be, because I like for you.
yeah, I'll,
Or, I guess,
That would be a funny angle.
yeah.
Everyone looking at it. No.
Yeah.
Right, you might have a meeting.
Yeah, when I get it like this, and then this, I want to it's different.
No.
So when I'm
it's going to be between, so there's a break.
yeah.
I want the Oscar.
Maybe between the, so maybe at the beginning of the session.
Oh.
So it's going to be right before, busy at 4:30. When we bring everybody back here. Yeah. Awesome.
Now they don't remember your actual name.
one of the things that I think you go about PDF that I think that's the
I just don't want to trip people, I'll just sit there and look at it. We have power. Without panicking if I get only need 50%. Yeah. I'm not gonna tell you, otherwise you're gonna have me. So do you usually like take your laptop out before we're along? Yes, yep. I'm taking notes furiously at the moment. I've done that previously and then I don't use them, whereas if they're on my computer I do. So it's it goes in better. I write that back in. Yeah.
I'll try and find it. Yeah, that'd be cool.
If my hands on it, it goes in my head better, but if I actually want to refer to it later, it's better if I stick it on the computer. I'm
sure that's because of just how when I went to school, I was on computers. No, when I went to school, there wasn't. No. Computers. I can remember typing up assignments, and I thought I was really cool because I had a typewriter that was oh yeah, at the top. That's showing my age. And it wasn't until Fred showed me the internet in 1994, and he had top of the line tech, worked for computer companies, top of the line tech, amazing, and I moaned that the internet was going too slow. Which is probably the worst thing you can say to a guy on your third date. So that's alright. I just look back at myself and wonder, like, so I have something that oh my goodness. Oh. We were something there.
So maybe
These are initials and then the books in the different library.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, Hillary. Oh, thank you so much. You pass my regards on to Martin for me. Lovely. What a nice man. Oh, and I love these cards.
That's fine. I was going to say, I was just going to
So lovely. The nice thing about the Charles is there's one for blue with blue. Just so lovely. Oh, you guys just having grace. She's just amazing.
Oh yeah, I'm so glad she came back. Something else.
Yes. Yeah. I talked to them about, well, it would have been over 2 years ago, saying, please. No, they said, oh no, we'll put it at the guy I talked to is Evan Moriarty, and I said, beg to please consider it, because I knew Otago University and the Hocken were considering doing it, but they aren't open by default, and so it would have been an institutional
Is it down?
sort of teaching point on the best way to describe it, had they done it, and I was desperate for them to do it because they're open by default. And just sit
Oh, wow. But yeah, that might get annoying.
That's a lovely picture that could be recommended under the social list.
Yeah, that's the loading bar.
Yeah, I'm still listening.
Yeah, massive gifts.
Oh well,
Yeah.
I'm going to lose the portion of the screen anyway. Sorry.
Okay, so I think we can get started. All right. Hello, everybody. This is our final tutorial session of the day. So you probably learned about data 101 and ingesting data into Wikidata. And now we're going to hear about how we can get data out of Wikidata with the Wikidata query service. We have Adam and Tom, who are some of the amazing Sparkle wizards in the room. Yeah, this is the last talk, so I think it's going to be a hands-on talk, and we'll take questions in the end, but feel free to engage their students with that.
I wouldn't say I'm a Sparkle wizard, but we can definitely help you get to know the query service and get to know Sparkle. We haven't rehearsed these slides at all, but we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, so if you're confused, like stick your hand up, shout at us, whatever.
So ideally everyone will have their laptop out because this will very much be a follow along and try it out for yourself. And if you have any questions along the way, then ask us. And basically we will progress from a really simple query of show me cats to more and more advanced queries, eventually getting to federation between different query services for different Wikidata's. Yeah, it is on. I can't hear you. So, yeah, we use Sparkle to ask our questions. I've already talked about most of this, and yeah, where you need to go now is query.wikidata.org, and hopefully everything's going to work just fine. When you get there, you'll see an examples button in the top left corner, and it's the easiest way to start learning about Sparkle queries. And also probably, even when you're writing queries in the future, it's probably the easiest place to start, is just with an example that does roughly what you want. Okay, let's alternate.
Cool. Yeah. So the first example is everyone successfully on the query service page? Anyone stuck? Oh, great. Yeah, awesome. Yeah. So the first example you'll see is this cats one, which is a super simple query, and it looks like this over here on the right. Yeah. So this is the first query. That's what you see pops up if you click it.
So you should be able to click the play button on the left-hand side, and it should run the query for you, and then give you all of the results at the bottom. Yeah, this is the most basic query you could possibly think of. Actually, no, it's not. But we'll come into sort of what the query is saying in a little bit, but let's play around with it a little bit first. So, yeah, you can use the query helper on the left-hand side to change from housecat to Wikicite conference, for example. You can click the play button again, and you should get a very different list of results that will hopefully just give you the 3 Wikicite conferences that there have been so far. Is that working for everyone? I see some nodding.
Somebody wasn't working?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't understand what the filter. No, I'm sorry. I said that. It says plus filter. We're not looking at that.
No, don't look at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I won't look at that.
Although the next slide we are going to look at that.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is basically just a representation of what the query on the right-hand side is doing. Hopefully it makes it nice and easy to sort of follow along. So now we want to go.
I got no matching records now.
Ooh, let's.
Oh, it's Wikicite.
Wikicite conference. Yeah. So now we can go ahead and add another filter to this query. If you follow along with the GIF that I made this morning. GIF or GIF, who knows? So if you click filter, it will give you a drop down selection for all Wikidata items that you could possibly want to filter by. It will make a pretty dumb selection of the property then, depending on what you choose to filter by. So if you go ahead and do Germany, we're only working with 3 entities here anyway, but if you put in Germany and then you also specify country and rerun the query, you should only get 1 result, because there's only been 1 Wikisite in Germany. Is that working for everyone?
Yep.
Amazing.
Yeah, a better question might be, is it not working for everyone?
Yeah.
We're getting country by itself.
All right, yeah.
It's giving country of origin.
You might have to scroll down the list a little bit.
Or
up the list a bit, of course.
So there's a little bit of a weird bit of UI there where it doesn't actually show.
Yeah, do it again, because it's actually what's funny.
Anyone else having problems, or everyone else has got just 1 result?
Oh, there it is. Okay. Scrolling off.
Happy days. Cool. So we'll go on to the next one then. Yeah. Cool. So this is like a slide kind of explaining what the stuff in the box on the right hand side actually means, and you can kind of see it's like coordinated by color here. Basically, we're kind of in this case we're just using this select thing, which is basically for asking questions and retrieving data, and that's all I think all we're going to be looking at in the talk today. So not like editing data or anything, you're just getting data, getting various types of data, and we're asking for all the data where this is true, which is basically saying all the things that are a subject. So imagine this is like a wildcard, this could be anything, this subject, where they're an instance of, and that's like this special language in Sparkle way to say instance of on Wikidata, and instance of human, and this is like how you say Q5 human on Wikidata, and at the end, so we don't get absolutely tons of results, we're limiting it. So we're saying once you've got 200 results, stop sending this anymore, because it could go on, but
And so you should be able to type that query in yourself, and it also should work. And we will cover what the WDT colon and the WD colon means a little bit later down the line. So does that work for everyone?
yeah, and obviously the P31 is the instance of property, and Q5 is the human item.
So I'll let you keep trying that and move on to the next slide. So the query service runs this thing called BlazeGraph. BlazeGraph is a triple store, and the triples are basically what you are querying here. And the triples, it's nice and easy if you think about these three colors. A triple is made up of 3 parts, and those are the 3 parts. And so every query basically is focusing on that. And so you can pick any Wikidata item and ask for all of the triples that are stored in the query service for it with a query just like this, where the only thing that you specify is WD colon and then the entity ID. So if you have any entity in mind, you can go and put that in there, and you'll see at the bottom of this slide there's the start of a very long list of triples. I think there's a few thousand for Alan Turing. And that gives you just an idea of how all of this is actually represented in the query service. So moving on from that query again. Oh, so another important thing. Yeah, these slides are in the Etherpad, and it will be good if you open it because there will start to be links to queries so that you don't have to type them all.
I am trying to open them, but
It
it
can't
can't.
Make the permission.
It's within the organization. That should work now.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if we have the nice simple query that was asking for all Alan Turing triples, and now we want to sort of refine that ever so slightly, and we're asking for fields of work, which is P 101. But what you can see here in the animation is it's actually using the auto-completion feature of the Wikidata Query Service UI. And when you're typing in the query box, you should see this little box appear in the bottom left. And so all you have to do is type WDT colon. This box will prompt you to enable auto-completion. And if you hit Control and space, you should be able to use text, so matching the label rather than typing the entity ID. Yes.
So my usual question / rant here is that this is hard-coded, and I cannot use it on my Mac. So is there a way in which I can toggle on post-completion on my Mac
That is a great question.
without changing
Is
all
there
the
no control?
What's that?
Is there no control key on that?
Well, of course, but the question is like I have that shortcut configured for totally different things. And it's I don't know, it would be nice to have the ability of configuring it. This is very PC and Linux friendly. Control space is not an option for Mac users.
You should open a ticket about that.
Have you opened a ticket?
I may have opened it.
Ah, good. Yeah, we should look at that. Maybe that's something we can do tomorrow. So has everyone kind of managed to have a go with auto-completion? Is anybody having issues?
Is anyone having the same issue as Dario? Matt, you don't have the same issue.
Yeah.
What does it do? What does
Well,
It just
it closes everything.
will, yeah, control space activates like a OS
Oh, no.
level function, I guess,
Oh.
spotlight.
Ah,
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's what you need Cobb?
So yeah, I have.
That's also bad for Chromebooks.
Is it?
Control space.
Yeah, we should fix that.
I never been able to try it.
Oh man. Yeah.
I had no idea about that.
Cool. Yeah, I guess we won't try and fix it now. But yeah, we should definitely fix that.
So sorry if you're on a Mac or a Chromebook.
Maybe you have a friend with a Linux machine next to you that you can be friendly with. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, so the next thing we're going to look at is basically the way to get the entity label for whenever you're pulling out. So you can see here we are. I think we're still looking at the same field of work query, but instead of getting back all the items about the field, or all the items for the field of work, we also want to actually have the English label for it, because it's super annoying if you have to click through each time or whatever, and can't just see the English string for it. So what we're going to use here is this kind of magic feature of the Wikidata query service, which isn't in all the Sparkle endpoints, but it's a special feature we have, which basically, by sticking this service line that's popping up at the bottom there, and then making another variable called object label with a capital L, it gets nicely pre-populated with the actual label text. And to get this to come up, you're going to use the autocompleting again, which kind of sucks if you're on a Mac, right? So sorry about that. And you can type service, or serve, or label, and that's like the option that will come up.
If you can't use the autocomplete, if you click on the majority of the examples, you'll just be able to copy this line because it's in basically all of the examples rather than trying to type it off the screen.
Yeah, don't worry too much about what the line says. If you wanted to change the language, you can probably tell you can like change the EN at the end to FR if you wanted it in French. But yeah, the rest of it, just don't worry about that. That's like some internal stuff.
So is anyone trying that unmanaged or running into any problems? Cool, and so yeah, the other thing with the label service is on the top line we can see the elements of the triples that we're selecting. And in this case we're adding a sort of magic element called object label. And essentially how that works is if you add the word label after any entities, then that magically will become the label. So if you were to type foo label there, nothing would work. And if you changed, so it has to match, and that's how the magical service works.
Okay, I've got a question because I never managed to work out how the hell to do it. It's probably really easy. So what if I want to get in this list the Wikipedia page, the English Wikipedia page that relates to mathematics, logic, cryptography, computer science, etc.
So you can definitely do it, but we will do it with you after we've gone through all the slides.
Fantastic, thank you. So long as I'm shown, I'm happy.
So I don't actually remember what this animation is showing us. So we'll wait for it to tick through a little bit. It's using the query helper again to do a more advanced query. And it's showing us how to select more things using the query helper. So before we were just selecting the item IDs and the item labels, and now we also want to show some other information from those entities, such as the
inception date.
Well, it's the inception date and the image property of all of those entities. You can run the query, and then this is all shown to you in the results below, and things will be linked to the comments images and whatnot. This isn't one of the example queries that you can click, but there are lots of example queries that do this. And also, so the query helper, you can give this a go and try just whatever you want. It doesn't have to be zoos. Could be museums and get their images in Germany. So we'll leave you a little bit of time to try that.
And yeah, in case you were just wondering how it kind of works, so all these things that are coming after the select here, those are like an extra column in the table you're seeing displayed at the bottom. So now you've got 4 things in the column. Like there's the item, label, date, image at the end, and then that's kind of the logic. Anyone stuck?
Well, the thing is, you can't really copy those because they're, you know.
Yeah, you can't. So you would want to like
So you
click
type
through.
the whole thing in.
Yeah, or click through with the thing on the left.
So the query helper.
Yeah, so the query helper is this thing on the left, and so you can click the buttons and start typing rather than trying to quickly type this whole thing in.
So again, if you start with the example that was cats, you'll have the instance of house cat there already. You can change cat to zoo, click the filter button and add a filter for Germany as we did in the previous one, and then switch Germany to, or whatever property it suggests there, to country. And then you can click in the show bit of the query helper and select some other properties to select, such as image. Probably coordinate location is also there. Inception was the other one, yeah.
Everyone still like typing happily, or? Yeah? Cool. It's great to shout if it's not working for you, or because it's probably our
Otherwise,
fault.
you'll assume everything's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure I don't know what the fuck that is.
I'm super short and non-threatening, so.
Sorry. Is that a counter?
Ooh, yeah, you've magically done more.
You guys like up there in the back?
Yeah, if you just
All good?
refresh.
Yeah, give me a thumbs up if it's working.
I get a lot of no results found, with instances used, country of origin, I'm going through various countries, with show, I get no
Oh,
results found.
Cool, yeah, so you're getting no results when you've put instance of country of origin.
That's correct.
not
Instance
country
of
origin.
two.
So what you want to do is country, yeah. So it can be a bit tricky when the labels are kind of similar, but you have to be using exactly the one that the people who've modeled the data on Wikidata have used. So, and country, I think we saw in the last one, it's kind of annoying in the UI, like you actually have to scroll up a bit to see country.
And so, yeah, you
Working
want to
now?
change it from country of origin.
Okay.
Yeah. It tries to suggest it, but it's not always like that.
How about you guys in the, like this wing on this side? All good? Working for you? Awesome! Yeah. And yeah.
So then you've got
And finally this like tranche of people behind Dario. You guys working for you?
Say again what show is doing, that's for the display.
Yeah, so that's basically like adding another column to the table at the bottom, which might have the image in it or whatever. So that's when you click show, you're also adding another word to this bit here between the select and the where. That's what it's doing for you.
There's a way so that, see that's a file, there is a way so that you can change.
Anybody else stuck?
Yeah, guys a little behind Dario, all good? Good?
Yeah.
Or problems? Little problems.
So then I'll script, we were trying something else.
Oh,
That's
cool.
okay,
Yeah,
that's
do that. Yeah. Loading.
So this is why the loading bar is still here. Well, we've lost that slide.
Are we still online, maybe? Are we still online?
Yes, I don't know. Let's just do this one. The next one was just, we'll come back to the next one when it loads.
Cool, I can talk a bit about this. So we were just looking at really simple property statements on Wikidata, where it's just like, this zoo was founded in 1890. And now we're going to also look at how you can access the qualifiers and subclasses of statements that are made on Wikidata. So basically, this is a query about looking for the item about a painting, and the first line here is trying to find all of the paintings. So this is the item for painting, and this here is like a clever way to say, give me everything that is an instance of any subclass of painting. So that's because the kind of hierarchy can be a bit complicated and messy. Because you might have an oil painting or like a 19th century oil painting, and you don't just want all the paintings, you want all the things that are instances of something below painting. And so the star here is basically saying, do as many of these subclass of jumps down the graph, jumps down the chain, and this one is just saying, the instance of it. And once we found the painting, we're then looking for these qualifiers to ask what their surface material is made of. And here you can see that might be set to something like wood, canvas, or in the case of the Mona Lisa, specifically poplar wood. And here, this line here is the same one you saw before, which is just giving you the magic label bit. So here, this is where we're pulling out the property, the qualifier section, getting this, kind of filling in this material variable.
So I think we'll try and go a bit faster now so that we can get through all of the slides and then come to the sort of questions that you guys want to ask afterwards. So the query service has lots of different views for the data. The one that you normally see is a table. If you look at the top left corner of the, is it on the next slide? Yeah, if you look at the top left corner of the results view, there's a little drop down that will allow you to select a bunch of different views. Some of these will be grayed out depending on how you've structured your query. For all of the views, there should be examples in the examples menu if you search for the name of the view. So if you search for bubble, you should get some queries that will result in giving you bubble charts afterwards. And also in this slide, some of these examples are also linked just up there. Oh, dear. And for the example queries, you'll note on line 2, there is a little comment that specifies what the default view will be when you run the query. And for this one, it is bubble chart. And so if you want to sort of share the queries around or send people a query that should result in a certain type of view, then this is how you need to do it. And this should also be in the auto suggestion thing that unfortunately some of you can't use. So another part of the magic that is being hidden from you by using the UI are all of these prefixes. So the triples are made up of URIs, and the prefixes are basically shortcuts to those URIs. And there's a pretty big list. These are the sort of Wikidata specific ones, and you can see the WD, WDT there, and their matching URIs. But we don't really need to worry about any of that today. But it gets, when you start wanting to query between multiple different Sparkle endpoints, then these are the sorts of things that you need to consider. So you can also write all the queries without the prefixes and instead put the full URIs there, but nobody wants to do that. So the next thing to note, I'll quickly skip back to the prefixes. At the top we have both WD and WDT. The T in WDT stands for truthy. That's actually a lie, it's WDT and P, not WD. So the T stands for truthy, and this, depending on how much you all know about Wikidata, it means the statements within the entities that are sort of the best. There's a concept of ranks within Wikidata where various statements might exist on an entity, but they're generally not accepted, or they're probably not the value you're looking for, and then they can be deprecated, and they won't show up when you write queries with the WDT prefix. And then you can also rank statements as preferred, and if you do that, then you will only get those results. But you can also, of course, ask for everything rather than just the truthy things. And you'll notice that in most of the example queries, it will only be using WDT and asking for this truthy level of results.
Question.
Yes.
So I was under the impression that the WDT and the WD was the difference between P values and Q values.
Yes, so yeah, sorry, I misspoke. It's not WD and WDT, it's WDT and P.
So WD is for like an item. WDT is a like truthy property, and then P is the non-truthy property, like full property. So you probably haven't used the P before because it's although it gives you the full statement, it means that you have like a whole nother load of sparkle lines you have to write because you have to take into account whether or not you want every single statement about that. So for example, you might have a statement on President of the United States saying current office holder is, and you're expecting it to come back with Donald Trump, but it actually has statements also for Barack Obama, but these are qualified with date ranges and things, and so you really want to get back the one truthy one.
And then another example would be population. An item could have 50 different values for population throughout the years, but there's only one that's sort of the current or value or that you'd expect.
But it's true that the WD is for the Q value.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. I think this is basically the last slide looking at queries. This one's a little bit bigger, and it's when we start looking at the realms of federation. This query isn't actually running on the Wikidata query service, it's running on the Wikibase registry query service, which is a Wikibase of Wikibases. And it's set up so that you can federate queries to the Wikidata query service. And there are two links here. If you don't want to click the links, I'm pretty sure you can just Google it. And on the homepage of the wiki, you will have, I think, 3 or 4 example query services, query examples. And here you can start to see that the prefixes come into play at the top of this query. So the Wikibase registry query service has prefixes defined for triples and data within the Wikibase registry. And those are all automatic and the same as you see on Wikidata query service. And then in order to talk about the Wikidata triples, we have to define some new prefixes that are just prefixed by WD. Again, you could actually write foobar baz there, you could have whatever you want there. And you can also put the full URIs inline in the query.
Basically, it's like we're using this Wikidata there, here.
And so this query is a little, it's a little bit, it's quite a lot to look at, but basically the first sort of block, so lines 9 to 14, is doing a query on the Wikibase registry data that is saying, give me all instances of Wikibases that are stored in this Wikibase. And then it's unioned in a really disgusting way with 2 queries on the Wikidata query service that is saying, give me all instances of the WikiDataCon events, or Wikidata birthdays, I think it is. In fact, it might be one of them is Wikidata birthdays and one of them is WikiDataCon events. And it's also selecting not only the item and the item label, but at the top it's also selecting the date of the event, or in the case of the Wikibase registry, it's like selecting the date that the Wikibase instance was created, and then also any image that's attached. And then on line 1, it displays it all as a timeline. I don't, oh dear, the animation's up. I don't have a screenshot of it, but I'm going to go and click on it so we can all see the wonderful timeline. And that's what that federated query gives you. Yes, sir?
The one thing that is important for people who are playing with this for the first time is that basically you can do this federation from whatever query service.
So it doesn't even have to be a Wikibase query service. You can do this federation between any Sparkle endpoint at all. But that gets a little bit more complicated, and there's other things to consider then as well. But so one good thing is if you want to write Sparkle queries, there's always lots of help for you. There are lots of little bits and pieces that you might want to know that I'm going to really quickly skip through here. But luckily at the end there's a page with them all listed. Using subqueries are good. They allow you to if you write one big query to do something really complicated, it's going to take forever and time out. And if you manage to split your query up at all, it will definitely help you. All these animations are slow. I'm not going to bother looking at any of this syntax actually. In fact, I'm going to skip all of these so we can get on to what questions you want to ask. Yeah. So here are the links that you want to look at. There's one link that I haven't included that I just remembered, which is on wikidata.org. There is essentially a page where you can ask for help with Sparkle queries, which is a great place because there are lots of people that know a lot about Sparkle and particularly querying Wikidata data, and they also know a lot more than I do. And basically what we've stepped through in this presentation is the third link, which is a gentle introduction to Sparkle. And yeah, and that is the end. Yes, any questions? I imagine, yeah, so we have 25 minutes left, and it's probably good to just work on queries and sort of dive in and try to answer some questions on the Wikidata dataset rather than me just talk about syntax and how to make queries more efficient. So. Yes?
Did you make queries about the properties themselves?
Yes, yeah, so all of the properties are also in there, and yeah, you can query for all.
Yeah, so the WD thing goes to any entity, so if you put P10 after it, you can see statements that are on the property rather than statements that are on the item.
So you can query about the data types and their properties?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you support describe and construct?
Good question.
I'm pretty sure describe yes, but construct no.
Yeah, I have no idea. So basically we support whatever BlazeGraph supports.
Okay.
Assuming they're just like get request queries, right?
Yeah, construct would be, we use it for doing subsets of, getting subsets of data.
Is it like destructive in any way? Does it change the data the query service holds? Your triple store would hold? No.
No.
Cool. Then yeah, it probably certainly works.
I just wonder if we have our own triple store and then we do like a federated query and we want to transform our data into your data, we can, you know, create the set. And
So there is construct working, and I'm pretty sure describe works, but there isn't exactly.
Although it describes the expensive one where it like figures out. Yeah, so it might time out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you can just describe the WD something.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Yeah,
wondering.
that's right.
Oh.
Cool.
Yes. Yes.
Can you query about the authors of the statements? The users?
No. So if you want to get like the revision history of each entity, you need to go and look through the dumps probably, or use the API. So yeah, if you want to do something like that, you might use the query service to build a list of the entities you're interested in, and then make API requests to figure out who the last person who added them was, or who the creator of the entity was. Yeah.
Is working on this.
Yeah, I think it is. It'd be cool when it's done. But yeah,
Probably has some
hack. Yeah.
graph stuff. No, he implemented his own engine.
Yeah. Dario.
Can you say a few words about schedule queries? I know, for example, like constraint reports and other scripts that use like data generator to me, specifically to generate like a snapshot of what's in Wikidata at a given point in time.
Yeah, so there are things like the, what are they called? The data, what are they called? Maintenance, I can't remember off the top of my head. So there are a bunch of queries that run regularly on Wikidata by various users and various scripts that populate pages of entities for various reasons. What are they called?
You have Squid.
Yes, you also have Squid, and you also have constraint reports on entities that periodically run also using BlazeGraph, and there are also a bunch of other tools that also use the query service for various things. There is a list somewhere. And in fact, actually, I think they're all represented in Wikidata as items, so you can probably write a query for them. So does anyone have any sort of queries they want to try and write? Yes.
I would like you to show me all the endemic moths of New Zealand, with or without a Wikipedia page, like 2 columns, or one column, just with Wikipedia pages that blanks, so if there aren't any.
So,
and you might have to do Lepidoptera rather than just moths, because it might not work with just families and stuff. So I don't care if there's 12 butterflies in there.
So,
Lepidoptera.
yeah, no, so this is really quickly just showing you how to get the site links from the items.
So that's the schema about part. So basically this is going to give me the site link. Yeah, just saying get me the site link.
So this query is literally give me every single item that has a site link that matches
part
this.
of that. So that you could replace that with I can't remember exactly. It is just n.wikipedia, but whatever that is, yeah.
Yeah, but you might find that unless you do other filtering, this is there's already a limit here actually. But if you start asking for every single page, every single item site link for English Wikipedia, it's just not. It won't work.
It won't work. Yeah.
So what was the?
Okay, Lepidoptera of New Zealand. Oh, Lepidoptera.
So it would be super useful if you could find the entity IDs. And which wiki was it?
English.
English.
Sorry, I've logged out.
So in theory, this will still just work.
I should not have put that.
Or it might not. Yeah, I think we have to add more filtering first.
Okay.
I can't pronounce it, but I can say it's Q28319.
Endemic 2 is P183.
Let's start. Wait. Q, wait, what was the Q?
It's under the next Q.
Yeah.
Q is 28319. That's Lepidoptera.
So let's see if this, so that already gives us.
And then we want New Zealand.
So
endemic 2. So the endemic is, just put it up 4, P183. And New Zealand is Q664. And then I want to be able to see whether it's got a Wikipedia page or not.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Oh yeah, so maybe it should actually be the geographic region New Zealand, not the administrative.
Oh, sorry.
territory of New
Yeah.
Zealand.
Constitution Monarchy of New Zealand. Yeah, probably is actually. Sorry.
Yeah, so that's something to keep an eye on, is like the way that countries and stuff are being modeled, is both modeled politically and geographically.
Yeah, it's all about football.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is why I wasn't using the autocomplete. Yeah.
Wow.
There's a lot of things that match.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay.
The island of New Zealand?
No, it won't be. This is I could have pulled. Maybe pull out one I've done.
So if you like load the entity about the constitutional monarchy, it probably says it's probably a property for
get in quick and get it done quickly. I don't have to work it out myself.
Country New Zealand, here you are. Oh, we're going around a circle.
Oh, we are going around in circles. So it might be useful.
Give us a mock.
Yeah, give us a mock.
I found country, country New Zealand, that do it.
Yeah, if you find us a mock,
Oh,
that's
no,
in
that's
there.
Yeah.
664.
Live queries.
Okay, and the PNUM item number is... Okay, I've got a moth that is endemic to New Zealand. I'm just checking to see whether it's got, yes it is. Okay, the moth I'm talking about is Q 7808140.
Ooh. That's
Oh, he's subtaxon, of course.
instance of taxon.
That's right. We were searching for,
Lepidoptera.
Lepidoptera.
Oh, of course, sorry, it's my fault. Not thinking properly.
So it's not an instance.
Of Lepidoptera, it's an instance of taxon.
Because that item is about like the concept of the moth. It's not about like an actual moth. If it's
Yeah.
about an actual moth, then
Yay, modelling.
does that make sense? So like if you had a moth,
A really famous moth.
yeah, that
would be-
species called
yeah.
Bill.
This one moth that caused a disaster and it
Yeah.
got a name, that would be, you know, the moth of the Titanic that shorted it and made it run into an iceberg.
So yeah, so the problem wasn't the geographic thing. The
No,
problem
it was
we
probably,
were
it was
looking
how
at
it
wrong.
The higher taxonomy.
Yeah.
Do they have a higher
Yeah, all
taxonomy
species are
properties? So you could identify some.
Yes, they do.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, they, but you've got to,
It's more parent.
no, it's not easy. Yeah,
So you're
this is why I want them to do this, because
Yeah.
I've tried to work out how to do this, and I can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, yeah, the higher taxonomy is
Yeah.
really helpful.
Well, that actually returns. That's weird.
So P31 is wrong.
Oh, maybe you want to get someone else to ask something, because this is quite unique.
No, we're all learning.
Sorry.
New Zealand. So that, why have we put it now?
Although, any, do you want Lepidoptera?
I want
species?
all the New Zealand Lepidoptera,
Right,
So this
and
is-
I just want to
yeah.
know whether what's got, that's endemic to New Zealand,
right,
and I want to know whether it's got a Wikipedia article or whether it doesn't.
right. So you
So
want
we put
all
star for
taxa
171 and
Yeah.
change the
that
property
are
to Lepidoptera.
in the family Lepidoptera,
That's right.
Yeah.
Types of
that,
Lepidoptera.
that have
So
family
Yeah.
Lepidoptera.
one genus. I. That is on.
This is the other reason I had problems.
That one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this,
And I'm going to get my phone ready in case she doesn't work. So I can take a photo. Oh, libertine, love it. There should be at least 1,650.
There's 10 currently.
10 currently.
what's limited?
Oh yeah, it's limited to 10, that's why there's 10.
I was going to say there should be a hell of a lot more.
Let's try that again. Yeah, so sometimes the limit will make things faster, sometimes it won't, because in most cases it still has to do the whole query. But
Yeah.
what you'll find is sometimes you will hit
Okay,
the timeout of the query, not because the query itself took too long, but because the result is too big.
Yeah.
And partway through sending you the result, it's like, oh no, that's too much. and
Okay,
it's-
so we've got 1,361, which is approximately right.
Okay, so now let me go and get the, oh, I think I didn't have it, oh.
Then I just want to know which ones have a Wikipedia page and which ones don't. In English, I should say, because there are plenty that have Wikipedia pages in other languages.
I don't like this new Chrome feature that switches me to a tab instead of. Yeah, so again, I'm going to just piece together.
Yep, I see what you're doing. You're searching.
Yeah, the trick is always
Site
mixing
link.
the answers.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's see, I've always
That's
been
the
looking at
magic word
Wikipedia
thing,
articles,
yes.
you know,
Yeah.
site link. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's just knowing what to ask for.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of it is that. So the first thing we did in the slides,
Yep.
when we like asked about all the triples from a single
Yep.
a single entity is quite useful because it gives you the schema about things that you maybe didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also schema is part of,
Yes.
which like maybe just didn't know was there.
No.
So you can just say it is part of and then.
Because there's going to be holes. Warning everybody.
So
Okay,
there's
go
904,
Okay, that's cool.
and I guess we can also select the article.
So these all do have it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how do I find out the ones that don't?
So you have to do a not.
Chapter not exists.
Yes. This is getting into the realms of Sparkle that I'm not great at.
If you're in Telegram, I pasted the code in Telegram, but I don't know if you're on Telegram.
Yeah.
I don't have Telegram on my.
I'll walk it up to you.
Because it just means this will give me a working list of things I need to do,
Yeah.
rather than having to find all.
And then you can.
And then I can also do the same thing with New Zealand Weevil. So
Yeah. So then you can use Listeria or something.
Yeah, exactly.
To make a big list.
Exactly.
Sort my
Yeah.
Everyone watch out for typos.
These are going to end all on my Google Photos and what the hell I can do.
Oh yeah, I missed all the ones. Luckily there's a format query button as well. All of the docs. Yeah, so wait, one of these, is it that one? Yeah. Ta-da! I want to get rid of that.
So technically there should be 400 of them. 4,000? That can't be right.
So we're now returning all of the things that have a schema. So they've all got a schema about. So if we get rid of line 6, then we won't see them. So these are all the things that have articles in other wikis that don't have an article in English.
Yeah. That's reassuring.
And other than Lucas, this is how everyone writes queries.
Right.
So. 1,361.
Oh. That can't be right.
That can't be right?
There's only 1,650 endemic moths, and we've just said that there's 900 odd articles in English Wikipedia about them. So I'm assuming.
There's about 300 or 400.
Yeah. Unless, I'm just trying to think of how some of the other things, there are synonyms in Wikidata for endemic moths.
Yeah.
So it's possible,
1,361.
it's possible that it includes synonyms as well. Okay. Maybe. But I feel like I'm taking up lots of time if someone else is.
This is great, this is great. So it can be downloaded, you can download it.
Yeah,
Oh,
once,
yes.
once I've got the query, I can put it in, there's tools I can use this query on, like Listeria, which will automatically generate a list for me. There's also Tabernacle, which I can use for the ones that do have a Wikipedia article, and I can add stuff into Wikidata from things. I mean, it's once I've got the query, I can do a hell of a lot with it. But I've had difficulty getting the query.
So you know the trick now is this using the schema as part of.
Yes.
Well, clearly we're not quite using filter not exist, right?
Yeah.
So maybe
Working with the filter side of things and then have a play with that.
Get rid of the parameters and see what happens.
Which? So between
one of the problems is that by specifying the hierarchy of parent taxons, you need to also, well, you specify the taxon rank.
Yeah.
Species level.
Yeah.
Ah,
You're getting
okay.
lots of stuff.
Very good.
Yeah.
General.
Yeah,
So
okay.
maybe we're getting out
So maybe,
the
yeah,
open articles and listen to species anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Right, that's true. 'Cause you could just
All right.
say is
We could do that. Lots
Yeah.
lots of example
to
models.
filter out the general.
Yeah.
But that filter should work.
Yes.
Yeah, that statement should work. And you should look at, Rosie does a lot of this with the
Yes.
woman in red.
Yes.
So look at some of her,
Her stuff, I know, her
Her,
stuff's amazing.
yeah.
What are we doing taxon rank?
105. 74.
What's this woman in red?
Yeah, the woman in red.
What's that about? I don't know.
So the Woman in Red project is by Rosie to try to find notable women who don't have a Wikipedia article. So she does a lot of her stuff off of
Yeah, I know,
Wikidata.
they're red,
Okay.
Yeah.
red,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but it's also a neat idea.
Yeah.
Season red.
Yeah.
It's also, well, this is learning, there's an alternative approach that is using the schema in language syntax.
Yeah.
I have, for example, from the example gallery, to search for,
Can you look at one of those results and see if it actually makes sense to us?
one of the examples here is French people with an article on English Wikipedia.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a good one that shows you, so French, English, there you go. Yes.
Interesting example.
Oh, okay, cool.
So you could drop the line 10. If you use those editors in English.
Yeah, interesting. That's not gonna own. It's a poorly worded because it's not just filtering on Wikipedia, but it will probably be fine.
Right.
Yeah, so it will be all.
English things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. There.
Well, I think she wants both, she wants to be in English, and she wants to be in,
Yeah,
So if it's Indian Wikipedia, it will be in English, but if it's English, it might not be.
yes,
Yeah,
right,
right,
right.
yeah.
I'm not sure why it's still giving us so many results.
I think it's because there might be synonyms in there too, and that it's still an instance of a taxon. This that might, I can't,
When you've got the list, go through something and see if they actually don't ask for them. Because it might be that they're not correctly linked, perhaps. Might be that they exist, but they're missing side links.
Maybe 1,000 duplicates.
Yeah. So many things that could be wrong.
So I think we only have about 2 minutes left. don't we?
sorry, I took all that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any other questions in the final 2 minutes? We kind of let time run away with us there. Well, we have a break after this, so maybe we can keep working on this group.
Yeah, so yeah, that was no English one.
Yeah, that has
Yeah.
no English. And should this be getting returned?
Okay, scroll down. Yeah, Merrick, if it's Merrick 11, just keep going down. Yep. I'm guaranteed, I'm 99% sure I'm the one who put endemic to New Zealand in.
So maybe this query is actually
Maybe
fine.
it is right.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna.
That is
So
like
there's
not really-
219 results, so that looks better.
Yeah.
Oh,
219 sounds not awful.
no, that is. I didn't realize that had gone. Yeah, and that's back to 1,000. Oh, interesting.
Those are back end ones.
Oh, did it? Apparently I can't anymore. It was in language.
Yeah, so I guess we're getting some things that don't have an English Wikipedia one that do have an English Wikipedia species one or something.
Cool.
That's probably why there's a difference between 200 and 400.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, right.
Thank you guys, that will be very helpful.
Hooray!
Now how'd you get
Someone capturing that short.
I just took a photo of it.
Oh, cool. I can, yeah. Oh, yeah, so a couple of other features really quickly. I don't know if, do these have images? Yeah, they have images,
They
right?
should, some of them will have, some of them won't. Just, I've put as many as I can, let's put it that way.
Ooh.
It's just the Dropbox.
So, yeah, so that I can show you switching between the different views. There's lots of other elements in this UI. Most of them should tell you what they are when you hover over them. In the help link as well, you have the links to basically everything that was in my presentation. Yes, request a query. Here's the place that I was talking about where you could just go to request a query if you, oh, no, good, I'm glad I didn't get rid of the query. Yeah, and there's lots of discussion that goes on there about queries. Also, if you find your query isn't running because it's taking too long, you can go there as well. Also down the left-hand side, you can expand this query helper, you can get rid of it, you can full screen, do some other things, clear your queries, get a link to it. And in the on the right-hand side as well, you can get a short URL to the request. So if you take a picture of that one, it'll be a lot easier to find.
Yeah.
Can you read it?
It is tinyurl.com/yd6. Yeah, let me paste it in the etherpad.
Cool, thank you.
Or, and, you know what, let me add it to the end of the presentation.
Fantastic.
Which tab was I in? Yeah, you can also download the results in a variety of different formats.
Yeah.
And apparently view code examples, which I didn't know was a thing, which is quite awesome.
Cool.
And last but not least, now that we're also selecting images, the magical view selection thing should realize that we've got images, and we can click on image grid and get some images as well. But one thing to note here is that by adding this line here, I'm only now selecting items that do have an image. And if you search through the examples, you'll find ways of making this optional as well, so it will still actually return all of the results.
Okay.
Cool, I think that's it. Feel free
Thank
to
you
come
so
and poke
much.
us afterwards.
Thank you all. So we now have a break. So make sure to stretch and relax for the next 20 minutes. And we're going to convene again in here at 4:30 for a group photo and for the wrap-up